You haven't started studying and your exam is tomorrow. So you only have a day left to prepare. What do you do? I always recommend to study in advance, but if you're last minute, here are some tips that you can use to not only pass the exam, but to also get a grade that is higher than the average. Now, it might not work every single time for every single subject, but it increases your chances of getting a better grade. So let's get right into it. Okay, so your exam is tomorrow, so you don't have much time. So you need to be really efficient by knowing what you should study for and how you should study. To do so, you can ask yourself the question, who is making the exam? If it's the teacher who's going to make your exam, then you should focus more on studying with the class notes and the PowerPoints. Because the teacher is going to test you on the things that he mentioned and covered in class. Now, what if the exam is the same for everyone, regardless of the teacher? That means that the person who is making the exam is making the exam based on something else. And that something else is usually a textbook. So in this case, since you know that the exam is going to be written based on the textbook, then you're not going to be focusing on the class notes or the PowerPoints. No, you're going to be focusing more on studying with the book. So, this book that all teachers tell you in the beginning of the year that you have to buy this textbooks, and this textbook is usually like $200, and you're like, no, I'm not gonna buy it. Like, we're not even gonna use it in class, and maybe it's true, you're not even gonna use the textbook in class, but again, if it's not the teacher who's making your test, and it's actually someone else who's making a test for everyone, well, that person is going to be making the test based on the textbook. So if you study with the textbooks, you're more likely to get a better grade. Now that you know if you should be using the textbook or the class notes to study, now there's another thing. Are you going to have time to read everything? Because your exam is tomorrow, you don't have much time. And even if you manage to read every single thing, well, there's high chances that you're not even going to understand what you just read, or, well, you will just forget what you have just read. Because according to research, we only remember 10% of what we're reading. So, again, that's being inefficient. This is where YouTube is going to save you. So, you go in your notes or in your textbook and you look at those summaries at the end of each chapters and you look for those key concepts. Then you take that concept and you write it in YouTube, and then you're going to have a bunch of like 5-minute videos who are going to explain to you in simple terms every single concept. And you're going to have a bunch of examples about this concept in this one 5-minute video. And you do that for every single concept, and look, you will be prepared for the test. The reason why I put so much emphasis on YouTube videos is because it can give you the information and make you understand the concept so fast, and it will make you understand the logic. Because once you understand the logic, you don't need to memorize everything by heart. You don't need to memorize all those small details, because when you know the logic, you can just, well, logically derive the answer. And a concept that it would take you like 10 pages to read in a textbook can be summarized in a 5-minute video. And plus, you will better understand the 5-minute video than all those 10 pages written in language that is hard to comprehend. It might be helpful for you if I share with you two channels that really help me academically. So if you're in sciences, for example, you have math, chemistry, physics, biology, I highly recommend Organic Chemistry Tutor. This guy is gonna save you, and he's gonna make you understand really hard concepts in just 5 minutes. So Organic Chemistry Tutor for sciences. Now, if you have economics like macro or micro, Jacob Clifford. This guy, also on YouTube, he's gonna help you so much. And concepts that, for example, it takes the textbook like 10 pages to explain, he explains it in like 2 or 3 minutes, and you actually understand it because it's put in such simple terms that it's just so easy to get the logic. So yeah, sciences, Organic Chemistry Tutor, and for economics, you can use Jacob Clifford. Now, moving on. Now that you understand the logic, there's less things that you need to know by heart. However, there's still things that you need to memorize, like formulas, names, like name of a person, name of a theorem, dates, or even structures and components of an essay. So there's still things that you do need to memorize. You cannot just understand the logic, like you need to memorize them. And some people recommend to just read it like 10 times and you will remember it. For me, it doesn't work, and it might not work for you too. So what I recommend and what I do is just write the thing, like the formula, 10 times. Or not 10 times, but a couple of times. You write the formula and eventually you will remember it. So what you can do is, okay, you write the formula a couple of times, and towards the end, you try to write the formula without looking at it. And you might forget to divide by x and to multiply by y. Then you write it the next time, and now it's only one mistake. You only forgot to multiply by y. And the next time you write it, now there's no mistakes. Now you write it perfectly. So now what it does to you is not only do you memorize visually, but you're also engaging the muscle memory, which is writing. So again, it will be easier for you to remember because even if visually you might not remember, your hand, when it's going to start writing the formula or the name or the date, it will remember where the letters or the numbers are positioned. So that is something that might help you. Writing the thing a couple of times. The next thing is, when you do have time, you learn first the theory, and then to reinforce the knowledge, you do examples. Now you don't have time. Your exam is tomorrow. So what I recommend is you do examples, and since you're doing examples, you will start understanding the theory. So you do the opposite. Instead of learning the theory and then doing examples, here you do examples, and this will make you understand the theory. And this applies especially if you're in sciences. So if you have math, physics, chemistry, or biology, or whatever, you find a past year exam with the answer sheets and you practice with it. And those exams are usually provided by your teacher, or you can just find them online. So what you can do is you read the first question, you try yourself, and then you go on the answer sheet and you see if you did the question right. So you look at the steps, how the question is solved, and you look at the answer. Then, if everything is right, you move to the second question. Same thing, you do it yourself, and then you look at the answer and make sure that you did everything right. Why I recommend doing one question and then looking at the answer right away, and not doing all of them and then looking at the answer, is because if, for example, you do the exam, like the practice exam, by yourself, and then you look at the answers, you might have repeated the same mistake in each question. And the problem with that is if you repeat the same mistake, well, it will become a habit, and you might do the same mistake on the real exam that is tomorrow. You don't want that. So when you do the first question, and if you do make a mistake, you will see it right away in the answer sheet. You will see question one, oh, I did a mistake here, I shouldn't do it again. Then you do the second question by yourself, and now you're not going to repeat the same mistake. So this is why I recommend doing one question and then looking at the answer. Second question, look at the answer. Now, if you're really in a rush and you don't have time to solve the practice exam, well, in that case, just look at the answers. So just take the practice exam from the past years and just read the question and just read the steps and how the question is solved. And then look at the second question and just read how it is solved. Again, it's less effective because you're only using your visual memory. You're not engaging your muscle memory, which is doing the question yourself, writing. But at least it will help you to get a better grade because now you understand that, okay, this is the steps on how to solving this question. The next tip that I can give you is pretty obvious. Focus on the material that is going to give you the most points on the exam. Because you don't want to waste your precious time that, by the way, you don't have a lot because your exam is tomorrow, trying to remembering and studying on concepts that are only going to be tested like 10% of the exam. Focus on this 90% that is going to be really huge on the exam and really understand this. If you understand this concept, you will pass the exam. So that's important. Focus on the things that are going to give you the most points on the test. Now, let's talk about cheating. Cheating is bad, by the way. But seriously, you're more likely to get a better grade if you spend your time on studying instead of spending your time on writing cheat sheets and planning on how you're going to cheat tomorrow on your test. By the way, cheating is too risky. Like, if you get caught cheating, well, not only do you get 0% on your exam, you might also fail your class and you might also get kicked out of your university or your high school. So it is not worth your risk, especially when you can actually get just like minimum 50 or 60% just by knowing the surface of the material. I'm telling you, if you just watch YouTube videos, you can get at least 50% or even 60% just by knowing the surface and knowing those key concepts that you know are going to be tested on the exam. So to be honest, cheating is not worth it. It's better that you apply this time into actually studying. So the last thing I want to talk about is, should you study all night and then go to the exam the next morning? I wouldn't recommend it. Teachers don't recommend it, and scientists don't recommend it. You're more likely to perform better on the exam if instead of spending all night studying, you actually sleep well. Then the next morning you go to the exam and you feel refreshed, you feel clear, and you're just able to think clearly, you're able to remember information better, you're just able to use logic, and you're more likely to perform better with the knowledge that you already have than if you were to try to absorb all this information in one night and then go to the test the next morning with only 2 hours of sleep. Because first, you might not even wake up in the morning. I don't mean like you're going to be dead. No, that's not what I mean. I mean that your alarm is going to ring, and because you're so tired, well, you're just not going to wake up, even if your alarm is like screaming in your ear. By the way, I'm talking from experience. It might happen to you, and you really don't want this to happen to you. So that's the first thing. You might not even wake up. The second thing is you will be brain dead. Like if you, I don't mean it in a negative way, but look, if you try to go to the exam and you didn't sleep enough, you're not going to be able to concentrate. It's going to be really, really hard. Things that would be so simple, questions that would be so simple for you to answer, now it will be really hard because you cannot think properly. You cannot recall information. You cannot think logically because you're simply just too tired. By the way, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't study and spend time studying. Yes, if for example you go to bed at 10 usually, you can stay till 11 or max 12 to get this extra 2 hours where you can actually like absorb information and learn new things, and then you go to sleep and you do the test. However, what I'm saying is do not sacrifice your whole night just to try to absorb as much as information as possible, because that will simply not work. You will not feel good on the test. You're not going to be able to even recall the information that you learned all night because you're going to be simply too tired. So yes, you might go to bed a little later because you're trying to get those extra like 1 and 2 hours of just additional information and studying. But then it's important that you go to sleep and at least get 6 or 7 hours of sleep so that you're able to perform on your test. So I hope this was helpful, and I wish you the best on your exam tomorrow. You will do great. I believe in you. Peace out.